basically just introduce now our other panelists. In addition to the speakers that have already presented, I have 4 additional panelists that are representing companies in our industry board who are joining us today. The first is Andrea Mülter. She's the Business Excellence and Development Manager at Leica, where she started straight after her postdoc. And in her role, she works closely with and even at the EMBL Imaging Center. So she's joining us here today. We have Daniel Ciepielewski from Nikon. He is the General Manager at Nikon Euro-BioImaging Healthcare, in charge of European strategy, product and marketing, having been at Nikon for 19 years now. And he's a very active member of our Euro-BioImaging industry board, as I mentioned. Herbert Schaden has been working at Carl Zeiss Microscopy for more than 25 years. And he is currently the head of global path development and academia key account customer relationship. Very long title, but in practice, Herbert is very hands-on and very active in our industry board. He has been elected the vice chair in February. And the last person to be introduced is Martin Tewinkel. He's the Senior Systems Business Manager at Olympus. He became chair of the industry board in 2020 and is very much invested in the progress and success of Euro-BioImaging. And Olympus joined the industry board alongside Nikon, Leica, ZEISS, and Thermo Fisher as founding member in 2014. And I would like to welcome all panelists and get straight into this discussion. And maybe going back to one of the first presentations we saw, I want to ask Luisa again to what do you see as the main benefits from a facility point of view to be part of a really defined program such as Labs at Location? I mean, there are, of course, other facilities that run training courses, very excellent training courses, also within our Euro-BioImaging network. And but can you just outline again what you see here, what really brings this defined program and network, what advantages it brings to you?
First of all, I think one of the main advantage is being part of a community. So it's not just us with ZEISS, it's many other partners, and the sharing of the knowledge, expertise, and also being together give us a lot of ways of sometimes to call people and ask for help in many different ways. So this is a great advantage. So it's the fact of being a community and not just one-by-one relationship. Of course, the support on the trainings, and you're right, there are many other courses that are very successful and with the very high quality around for us, because we are not such a huge facility. So it was great since the beginning, because it was a way of having systems that we could not have in the facility for a start. And so we could show new technologies that were not in place, and to get the community awareness of what they could do with them. And of course, that was the initial steps to improve the facility and to grow the facility. And that was very nice. And regarding the sample preparation that we do often to ZEISS, that is also nice for us, because it's a way of spreading our institute in many other institutes by showing them what we can do and what are our expertise around.
So does this translate into more users at your facility as well? Do people who have come maybe to look at an instrument or a certain application, do they return and
yeah, in fact, for instance, if I take a look at the participants in the courses, they have been increasing, and now we getting people outside Portugal. And that is also because of the spreading of the name, and also of the quality of the course, of course, and which is quite nice. And also I've been in contact with people from outside to not so much about coming on the systems, but to share the knowledge and the advice regarding the expertise that we have in place.
So if I ask now on the company side, if you set up such a program, and if you basically help the facilities with training, offer joint training activities, or support them in providing early access to a new technology, how does that help you strengthen the relationship to your customers and to the technology end user? Maybe Herbert, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, the training has different aspects, and I mean, it was so much emphasized in these talks, which I really appreciate, and thanks for all these excellent contributions. I mean, training is the core, one of the core goals to develop within Euro-BioImaging. I mean, the knowledge in the nodes further. And I mean, again, it has two aspects. The one is definitely, if you look in the existing equipment in the nodes, where we really would like and go for dedicated training for staff, maybe also users, very specific on their needs. I mean, that is important, because I mean, the usage of the instrumentation, the better it is used, the power of the instrumentation is used. I mean, the higher benefit it is obviously for the users and customers. I mean, it's big investments, and it would be a pity if not use the whole, let's say, power of the installations. On the other side, with these kind of trainings, you learn quite a lot of the actual needs back for us in the companies, as well as possible future needs. And that means that could lead also then to a next level of cooperation besides the trainings that could go then in other, let's say, types of corporations that have been mentioned in these talks. And a second aspect is about the I mean, general workshops, on-site workshops, ideally, where there is the possibility then to introduce maybe some new technologies, applications, workflows that might bring value to the facilities. And these are then something where we can introduce very efficiently, but also again locally, and present is that value for the facility. So that is actually the two main aspects, definitely not all, but two main aspects from my side.
Thank you, Herbert, for this view. And I mean, it is true, of course, having the instruments presented also in this expert environment where you have people who can show maybe even more than your experts at the company, the whole range of things that it is capable of, and having real user applications. That's a great benefit as well. It really shows the equipment in the best light.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So
we heard, besides the training, and then another aspect that we heard about a lot from Alberto, for example, was looking at this collaboration with companies also in the development. And we have here maybe Daniel as representing Nikon, since Alberto presented the Nikon Center. How does this collaboration with academia then shape your own development pipeline? How do you pick up ideas, and how does this influence and which projects you internally proceed then?
Well, so I have to say that is me or Daniel?
No, go.
Let's start with Daniel, and then Alberto.
Okay, Daniel, please.
Oh, sorry, Alberto. Sorry, Alberto. Well, so no, basically, what is important to notice, and I think that Herbert also mentioned, is that the fact to be in contact with the end user really allows us to understand all the challenges, and especially the challenges of the daily work. And this is also very important for us because, of course, we create instruments, we have solutions, but at the end of the day, even if we have the capacity to demonstrate the instrument and to, let's say, fit a number of problematic, it cannot replace the experience on the system, on the daily work. So the collaboration with this type of facility really allow us to understand the challenges, and when we come up with some ideas to improve or to add another devices or another functionalities, what is very interesting is to go really to the expert who are needing this technology or are looking for solutions for their own experiments. So this is something that, for example, Alberto has a very strong input for us, because when we consider that we can do some, let's say, some change or some implementation, of course, on a confidential level, but it's the same thing for all the companies, we try to gather their feedback before going too far in a development, which at the end could be useless if it does not fit to the requirements. So I think it's a win-win situation, because we can progress in a direction that we know that it will be useful for the end user, but also it gives the opportunity to the facility in collaboration with the industry to also push the limit of their experiments and maybe get results that they were not able to get before.
Well, if I can now, I think that, well, I'm in tune with Daniel in this, but also I would like to tell you that it's very important, the interaction with users, because through the utilization of the latest microscopes that Nikon is developing in this case, we also have some feedback or some important hints about which are the most important developments that are needed by other groups that we can call the users, but are not only users. It is a continuous collaboration. And on the other side, we have something that makes us rich in our developments, not only of new optical solutions or detection solution that we can propose, we can check under confidential or whatever it is, but also in the development of artificial intelligence software, because we have a large variety of data that we are able to collect in our center due to the interaction of users. So I think that this is an added value of this kind of activity. It's really a win-win activity, because we share. And we also have this kind of activity with other companies in other labs. And I think that in the direct connection with companies making microscopes, and then with the side connection with companies making illumination detectors and all the other parts that are the microscope, I think that we can grow together. So this is very important. And people coming for training, they feel, they understand that this is not only a matter of having the instruments always well functioning. It's a matter of having the instruments always well functioning with good ideas for new perspective in terms of utilization of the instruments. So I think that is a very good chance that we have having a lot of people in the center discussing and using the instruments. In this case, the Nikon Imaging Center, but we also have other networking activities.
Thank you, Alberto. Irina, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Claudio. Thank you very much, everyone. It's really great to have this close interaction with users as well, to get the feedback in time. I was just really wondering from the perspective of a PhD student or a postdoc, imagine the person coming to a project and has an idea, and even getting in contact with companies at the right time, it still takes time, right, to implement some things for this project, meaning that probably the postdoc is already done with the project when these developments are taking place. So my question would be, is there anything going on to interact with research groups a bit more actively with PIs, even if they're not really experts, but really also getting into the students community at conferences, workshops, talk to them, exchange ideas, and maybe get this feedback as early as possible, because sometimes, of course, students or young scientists are not aware what is possible, what can be developed, but they might have really nice ideas that can be catch up. So I'm just wondering if you consider this aspect that the time for a scientist is sometimes really limited, and how maybe to make it better in these developments and to make it more efficient. Maybe it's a difficult question, I'm sorry for this, but yeah, going through postdoc and PhD, I think it's a question for many people. Thanks.
Well, PhD students are, of course, a great resource for the centers. And what we try to do is to offer them a very fast interaction. Fast, but not superficial. I mean, so we want them prepared on the basics, and then we bring them into the specific of the application. And since we have a lot of possibilities in terms of imaging, of multimodal imaging, or attacking the problem from different sides, I think this is also a very good chance they have when they come to the center. So again, it's a very fruitful activity in this sense. But about PhD students, the only thing we ask is that they have a strong knowledge about the basics. I mean, so this is what we need. I mean, what we ask. Otherwise, you have to build a knowledge that is impossible to build in 1 year, 6 months, for having them working in the proper way. And this is missing a little bit. So it's very difficult to find people in our field at a very good level, also when PhD students apply. And I don't know about the other centers, but it's not so easy.
Martin, I think you raised your hand first.
Yes, I would like to comment from the company perspective and regarding young people, scientists approaching a facility. I think we have to differentiate. We have on one hand, and in most facilities, you have a pool of, say, fully commercial systems where the users basically are trained and to operate the systems by themselves and focus on the applications. You have the standard imaging facility. But to a different extent, many of the advanced facilities have, I would call it, an R&D facility part, where also research, especially as Alberto explained, you do not only focus on the application, but it's a kind of co-development of application and technology. And there we are very well aware of that one partner involved is a microscope supplier, basically offering a kind of optical bench and optics, and then there are many others, specialized companies, camera manufacturers, detector manufacturers, also companies in between applications and technology, and to make this kind of breadboard approach realistic, also within, for example, a PhD time to achieve a certain progress. And out of that, if a proven technology or proven method we would consider as a company to develop a commercial product out of that, then I would be afraid all the parameters we have to fulfill up to the level that it is a fully commercially produced system, certified, for example, to be sold to facilities, will take quite some time. That is not realistic to consider, even with a PhD time. Therefore, we have to differentiate, and I think main progress is for sure done in those facilities where a focus is on R&D, and for example, as this is intended also to get involved companies more frequently and more deeply with the new imaging center at the EMBL to offer this as an opportunity.
Thank you, Martin. Andrea, do you have a comment directly to this?
Yes, if I know that we're short on time, but I'll just briefly comment and on adding basically to what Martin said. This is, to me, the core of what the EMBL Imaging Center is trying to do, to provide us as companies, and we're heavily invested within the EMBL Imaging Center and closely working with Timo and Simone Mattei to provide also PhD students, postdocs that have a challenging project they can't work on at their institution or anywhere nearby, with technologies that are either high-end commercially available systems, or also, I mean, systems that are more in development. And for us, the imaging center is something where we really have the advantage of being also physically close, having an R&D department that is close to the imaging center in Heidelberg, where we can actually work together with the users that are coming to the imaging center.
Yes, thank you. Timo, you want to add to this? Please, you're muted.
Just very shortly, because I know you want probably to go to another topic as well. I think actually the centers that we also presented, they are maybe also a good way to connect to the PhD students, to people also lower in there. They should be like the matchmaker. I think if this would be on a meeting or so, it would not be targeted enough. I mean, one also has to understand that companies, of course, have to structure their approaches. And therefore, I think having somebody that can put it into some kind of better pipeline or conduit is maybe also very useful on both sides of the equation, just to say.
Yes, thank you, Timo, for this addition. Alberto.
Yeah, very shortly, we have also another aspect that's very important in these centers. The focus on sample preparation. I mean, people has the great advantage of understanding what does it mean to prepare a sample. When you have some colocalization in fluorescence, this does not mean that you can perform FRET, and they can understand this, or super resolution, or other methods. So I think that this is a very important point that we are able to develop in the centers. I think in all the centers, due to the variety of systems and to the availability of people coming from different areas. So, and for I think that this is very important for PhD students and postdoc, because the scientific question they have, in case it's carried out using a wrong preparation of the sample, I mean, you know better than me, what does it happen in this case?
Thank you, Alberto. We have now explored quite extensively the training aspects and the user access and the support that the user gets, and how these different user projects are of great interest to companies as well, because they have their know-how, their expertise, their instruments, and to develop these further, they need really input from the community on what applications are needed and what projects are out there. But in our audience today, we have many people from imaging facilities as well, and they are probably also interested in the other side of it, and in driving technology development from their own ideas, developing their own ideas further. And here also Alberto has given some examples from his environment. And so I have two questions for that. So one is really when developing something as a facility, and maybe you are engaged with beta testing with the company, but I understand that this is normally a rather small circle where you test something. When do you come to the point where you say, okay, this is now maybe not yet on the market, but we want to roll it out to wider audience and to get more real user projects in? What marks this transition point for you? Maybe Andrea or Timo, you would like to comment. Andrea.
I can, yeah, so from a company point of view, I mean, there are two different major stages at which we would place technology into the hand of users. One is really at a very early stage, which is, as you said, quite restricted, where we would run something like an alpha test, just to test whether a potential product makes sense and can really fulfill what the community needs in terms of tools for advancing science. And then if we run a beta test that is at a much later stage in development, it basically has to be at a stage where with some training, the users can operate the system autonomously and just use it as they would use a commercial product in their daily work. There will be problems popping up because otherwise it would be already launched. But this helps us to get rid of the last bugs and issues that might be there with a system. So this is basically when can it be used without someone from the company sitting next to the user all the time.
Timo, you want to add to this?
I think actually the two concepts that were mentioned are very important, like let's say something more at the alpha stage and something more at the beta stage. I think it's just very, it needs to be always understood what you're aiming for, because the procedures are very different. I think, I mean, I've seen this a lot with beta involvement in beta tests. It may be too late to make a fundamental contribution, but at this point, it's also very good if one opens this to the users that the system really works, that it doesn't generate more frustration than excitement. So this, I think, is something where the company has to be careful in doing the last step while still being able to get the input. I think going forward and putting this more into the alpha stage is very useful because maybe earlier on you can avoid a certain kind of tunnel vision that are very often experienced. In the end, the developers, which are very often, let's say, not biologists, they focus on one sample, and for this they develop the perfect solution. But challenging this earlier on and widening this can actually probably help in the final product. So basically, as long as one offers both activities and and knows always what one is going for and how to release it, then I think it can be extremely useful.
Herbert.
Yeah, if I may add something, I mean, both, I mean, Andrea and Timo completely right. I mean, this is how I think it is, not how it is seen in a development project, but what I would like to maybe underline once more. I mean, the question, I mean, the decision when you, I mean, is that something for the market? I mean, that must come quite early, and there is the let's say, the inputs, I mean, from the communities, from the users, extremely important to see, I mean, is that just a nice techie idea? But at the end, there is only, let's say, the market is much too small to actually to start such a project, development project. So there, the interaction is extremely important, open interaction to find here, is there a place, a reasonable place for this technology in the market? And then, of course, I mean, does it work? That's kind of a proof of principle, alpha test, these kind of things. And at the very end, it was said already of the development project. the beta test, where the instrumentation is almost ready, but must be still flexible enough to get the inputs from the users. Now, as Timo is very experienced, I said, I mean, it doesn't make sense if we do testing and then say, fine, but we keep it as it is. I mean, there comes a lot of usually also good let's say input back to try to at least to put that in the first release or to implement that in next releases. No? So that is then, I mean, just right before, let's say, an introduction phase of the instrumentation. Just my 2 cents adding to everything what was said.
Yes, thank you, Herbert. And we have with Etienne and Luc, we have 2 people here also who have dedicated a lot of time identifying really ideas that can be pushed this one step further and that have a market potential. And maybe Luc, you've already raised your hand. Maybe you want to share your views on what tells you when a new technology or application has really a potential to go further, and what is needed to support the research or the facility where it originates to realize this.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to build up on what Herbert said just before. What was very instrumental in the relationship between FBI and the researchers at the very initial days of the venture, it was really all the discussions around the business model, not so much the market size, but the business model and what people really wanted to do out of it and how it could turn, how this idea could turn into a business. What was it about? Was it about selling consumables, chemicals? Was it about selling plasmids? Was it about selling expertise? Was there room for creating a startup, or was it only about a licensing agreement that we should look for? And all these questions, all these discussions between the researchers and the FBI people these days, this is what finally helped them to make their mind, and also to turn them into valorization people, not only researchers, but once again, not into entrepreneur, because none of them had the profile for becoming an entrepreneur, and this was really not what they wanted to do. And you may not always want that it's your PhD students who's gonna be the head of the company that you are gonna set up. So this is, and all this process takes time, and I think that you don't want to go too fast at these very steps. It's a lot of discussions, but you have to change your mind. It's not only about gathering facts and gathering data and gathering the market size. It's not only about that. It's really about thinking, designing where you want to go, how you want to get there, blah, blah, and so on. And so this takes time. And my recommendation would be not to go too fast in these steps. And I think I would not exaggerate if I would say that it may have taken up to 2 years at least for the researchers before they finally make their mind and they decided to create a company and to hire a CEO and all these steps.
Thank you, Luc. Yeah, that actually brings me to a question for Etienne. In your dealings with researchers and what do you experience that they struggle with mostly? Is it this? Is it basically to have this open mind of what can be done with their idea beyond the scientific publication that's often closer to them and what they aim for? Or is it just that they are afraid of the complexity of the process? Or what do you find is needed mostly from you when you are approached to help with the transfer process?
I don't know if I can, but the main transfer process is publishing, not for publishing for CV, but publishing for having a feedback from the scientific community, from reviewers at the very first stage to readers. And the other issue that we are interested in is answering our scientific questions. In parallel, we have the development of new tools when we have to answer in a more specific way to specific questions. But the main focus, I think, is always think about publishing something in an open access journal in order to have the feedback. And I think that is, if we start thinking about the patent, or if the company is asking for something, you immediately get lost and your research is old. I mean, because something I had already in mind, something is something new coming from the application of these instruments that helps to grow. I mean, so this is what happens in our center. So, but publication is an important part of this transfer.
Yes, and look, you mentioned the different forms of impact that new development might have, and that maybe making money out of a company and having large numbers of sales is the very end of the process, and for some ideas not even the most suitable, or what is what this could lead to. And so I have a question then, really maybe going back to I will, or do you want to add first, Luc, to the...
Yeah, maybe I would like to elaborate on what Alberto said just before, and to answer your question. Definitely making money at the end of the day is one driver of the company, and we will. But when I did interview the researchers before starting up, and one of them said, what I want is, because I know that I cannot work my whole life on this very topic, and in 4 or 5 years from now, I will have to change a little bit, and he's now thinking of what can be next. He said, there are plenty of very nice technologies, plenty of very nice products, which are just still in a drawer because they did not get through fast enough. So they did not get through fast enough in the scientific community, in the academic community. And what he said is that what I expect from building a company is that this company would speed up the dissemination process, so that there are plenty of people in the academic community who would work with my products, who would work with my technology, and finally, who would cite me, and this will improve my H-index. So really, this is the kind of question that you have to go very deeply into when you think of valorizing a new technology, a new product, and you really have to talk a lot with the researchers about their true motivations. And really, because I used to be a scientist, even if I am not anymore a scientist these days, I can understand that, and I'm very happy to serve this objective.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luc. And I think this is also a role that could be attributed to places such as the EMBL Imaging Center or the Nikon Center, with their high visibility and really a concentration of expertise, that they can really drive uptake of new technology, new applications into the research community. Maybe Andrea, since you raised your hand, how do you see the role of such beacons, so to speak, institutes with high visibility and really speeding up, accelerating the uptake of new technology?
Yeah, for us, such centers as the EMBL Imaging Center are places where on the one hand side, we can get fully immersed into a scientific workflow, work with scientists and understand what the needs are, how we as tool providers to move science forward, how we can improve our tools where there are maybe gaps, as Timo said earlier. And on the other hand, with all the technological expertise and R&D groups that are at places such as the EMBL, we're benefiting from being involved in that environment, but also outside of the EMBL in general. If anyone has an idea that you would like to share with us or discuss with us, I think Ashta posted a link to our ideation website in the chat, so you can go there, put in your ideas, suggestions, or challenges you're facing with your applications at the moment. This will be picked up by the open innovation team led by Sebastian Tille in our team, and they will look through it, see if that has a potential for being turned into product.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Timo.
Also, just adding to this, I think that these places that are really focused on supporting, let's say, an imaging technique, they can be really useful exactly for this kind of popularization, because I mean, a lot of the techniques also have challenges that you can almost see like an activation energy. And I think it really depends, this is really the choice that, for example, a company that wants to expose something has to make, where to place a technique, maybe repeating myself a little bit, where it generates more excitement than frustration. So to really know, okay, if there's, for example, something in the handling initially that's very different, how can you have somebody that can really bring the user across, and by this then expose it, and at some point it just develops its own dynamic. But especially in this early stage, I mean, there's even this, this is always this gap that's being described in any kind of invention. To really get it to adoption, you have, I think, using these expert surroundings are hopefully very useful.
Thank you, Timo. And unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our discussion now. Our time is already up. What will give us 5 extra minutes, and maybe pick up on that word you mentioned, enthusiasm. And I would like to do a quick roundtable with the panelists here, and just in 1-2 sentences, collaboration between companies and your institution. What do you see as the most rewarding coming out of it? And I just go around as I see people on my screen here, and start with Timo. What's your motivation boost, the most rewarding in your interaction? We can't hear you, unfortunately.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're all the same. This is the exciting thing, that I think when you really talk to people, let's say on the company side, on the let's say image specialist side, it's the same like in some of the meetings where we can just be or follow our interests. We have a lot of overlap, and being able to connect this productively is actually just very nice, because very often one sees oneself on 2 sides of the camp, but I think we have a lot in common, and opening up this is actually, I think, the best part.
That's great. Luisa, you're next.
Yeah, I think Timo said it all. So it's a win-win situation. So I think all of us will profit from the interaction, either by getting new insights of what the community needs, and for us, it's what we can get from the systems, and how can we improve the research that we've been doing, and find different ways to answer the questions. So I think it's really nice, and I think it's very important for the development, either from the system point of view and for the research point of view.
Thank you, Luisa. Alberto, what makes you feel good when you leave the lab in the evening?
It's a privileged situation, because you can focus on your scientific questions in terms of development of optics, or in terms of developing of other biological questions. And in our experience, the keyword is freedom, because we don't have any pressure for developing something special, and we don't put any pressure in developing other things. We simply develop and check and have the feedback. And also having a large amount of people to discuss with. And so this is, I think, the best think that we have with a center.
So passion for science and passion for technology that is shared between all involved in the collaboration is key here. Daniel, do you have something to add from your perspective?
Well, I think it will be more and more difficult to add something, and I guess the last of the panel will be probably will have more problem to say something. No, I mean, just quickly, I mean, basically it's a pleasure and a challenge. The pleasure is coming from the fact that we see that many experiments, many applications are really done with the instrument and can be achieved with the instrument and really pushed. So this is something which is, I mean, a pleasure from a company perspective, that you can really see the achievement of the research group. But on the other side, it's also super good for us and challenging to see what is still missing and what can be done, sorry, next. And it's a sort of pleasure, but okay, what's coming next? And I think this is one of the points which is very exciting in such a collaboration, on top of what have been said already.
Yes, so what's coming next? That's indeed always exciting. And I mean, we have seen also yesterday at our Notes and Industry meeting that scientists are always going to come up with new questions. There's always new things they want to do, and so the development continues really. Martin, maybe to give this a different flavor, and since you are the chair of our industry board of Euro-BioImaging, maybe you can let us know what motivates you to be part of the Euro-BioImaging community and what you get out of this for you, for Olympus.
On one hand, I enjoy listening and learning all the time from research, from applications, and on the other hand, as a representative of a company, to do consultation and to contribute to teaching.
Yes, and that's really a great thing that our industry board does as well, contribute to expert groups that we have, to advanced training. We have a training resource on our website. So that is really, yeah, bringing this knowledge to the users and make them realize their research projects with the help of the companies as well. And of course, mediators from the facility who know their instruments in and out. Renate.
Sorry, I was mute. Now, in my opinion, I think trusting each other and giving honest feedback is one of the most important factors here. That's my 5 cents.
To have a really open environment where you can have this discussion, yes, really. And yeah. I think having this really a program where you have a selected group of labs, a selected group of people that meet regularly, that's very helpful in building this relationship where you can freely discuss and
yes,
interact.
That's it.
Herbert.
Daniel is right, it's getting really difficult now. I mean, let's say like they try to get, I mean, any collaboration, of course, is somehow started with a goal, and at the end, I mean, what is really rewarding when you see that we jointly can contribute, I mean, to achieve that goal that brings more value and success actually then to the users, and that is something which is for my opinion, a really rewarding situation. Luisa, the win-win situation definitely is part of that. So that's my contribution here.
Yes, thank you, Herbert. So next I have Andrea, and maybe since I've seen you up here at the imaging center now a few times, maybe you can give this a more personal spin and say what you like about coming up here. And
but it's not just the imaging center, but of course for me, I mean, I live right at the 10 minutes away, so that's the easiest. But in general, collaborating with scientists and as Alberto said, in academia, you have this freedom of doing, well, not everything you want to do, but focusing on what your heart burns for, and combined with a creativity that scientists and also our R&D people and everyone has. This is really to see the spirit of creativity and driving into areas that have not been touched before, and then making this work together with a company and collaborating as a team to make something out of that that can be used by a wider community, knowing that this will help to advance science in a larger scale is really, really cool to see that from the start on, and to have it as a team effort.
Yeah, it's great to see that you pertain this enthusiasm and this passion for science, and that's maybe of interest for the younger listeners, the ones earlier in their career, that this is not a conflict working for a company and being passionate about science. You still seem to have this freedom to be able to drive new ideas forward, to develop forward, and maybe that's an invitation for those who think that they don't want to pursue their academic career, but they can also join you and still bring their ideas forward in an industrial environment. And so, yeah, the role for the last word goes to Luc then, just because you're last on my screen, and maybe you can say what you find most rewarding when working and really building these companies and seeing them prosper. And
yeah, as I told you before, there are more than 120 teams working at implementing our technology. I would say that the most rewarding for me as a former scientist, even if I am not anymore, is this all these interactions, all these projects, and finally those sales. There is always the risk of being overwhelmed by noisy interactions, I would say. And I think that this is what we most expect from structures like FBI or Euro-BioImaging, is to help focus, to have the right people talking to the right people.
Thank you very much, Luc. That's the importance, and I brought the right people here today. That much is clear. I would really like to thank the speakers and panelists for this very great insights and this really inspiring discussion. And as those collaborations that we've seen today are filled with life, they can really have significant impact on the scientific community, and they accelerate uptake of new technologies. They enable the users to do new applications and build knowledge and competence. And that's very important, this interaction with the imaging community that you have there. And yeah, thank you very much again. Thank you also to the audience.